let's go to... There's a bunch of intersecting feuds that build toward War Games. So let's start with AJ's world title defenses, I guess.
This is the War Games portion.
Indeed. As we build to Wednesday Bloody Wednesday. First show of the month, NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 57, August 6th. AJ defended the World Championship against D'Lo Brown in a steel cage match.
Yeah.
Deeply disappointing for me, honestly.
Yeah, this one there's just too much going on here.
Yeah, it was all about Watts and Russo at ringside. The finish was D'Lo got up to the top of the cage, which I think is the third time D'Lo has climbed to the top of the cage.
He's a crazy person.
And he hasn't been able to hit a single move off the top, though. They keep cutting him off. Poor D'Lo can't do his frog splash off the cage.
To be fair, would you want to take that?
Well, yeah. So the finish is Watts picks Russo up while Russo's trying to interfere. He rams Russo into the cage, but while D'Lo's on top of the cage, D'Lo falls off because the cage moves, and AJ retains.
That's a crazy finish.
Yeah, and it makes sense, and it protects D'Lo, but it's just... The match wasn't good enough for me to put up with a bad finish, you know?
And also, 5 minutes of it was, let's put the cameras on Watts beating up Russo on the outside.
And yeah, the AJ D'Lo feud as a world title program, I think, falls broadly into the disappointing category. I think the best match they had was the match where AJ became number one contender, which was before they even started feuding. They were still tag team partners at that stage.
Yeah, and I was gonna say their best matches were their tag matches too.
So yeah, it's quite unfortunate that and I don't think it's really their fault. I think it's just everything around them is about that instead of about their world title program. It's all about Russo and Siaki and Watts. It's not about AJ and D'Lo.
Yep.
There was an age of stalling before this match. The second last match on this show was, what was it? Was it AMW against Diamond Swinger or Sabin against Kaz? Either way.
Kaz Sabin.
And the gap between Sabin and Kaz and the start of AJ and D'Lo, they had a Daniels segment. They had the AMW segment with announcing Dusty as their partner. They had a video package for Styles and D'Lo. They had an interview with Styles and Russo. They had an interview with D'Lo. It was 30 minutes without wrestling. It's up next, it's the world title match. Now let us stall for a significant portion of time.
They should have just let them go for 30.
Yeah, so there was a sit-down interview with Styles and Russo where Styles was I'm with Russo just cause, and he tried to explain it, but he didn't actually have a reason. He just said, why not?
Yeah, I mean, he has the power.
AJ wearing baggy jeans and a t-shirt.
Twas the look of the time.
I did quite enjoy that, Russo's AJ, get out of here. And then Russo tries to get in Mike Tenay's face. It's say it to my face, Mike. And Mike Tenay's yes, I will. I have been. You suck. Go away. Leave me alone.
Don't threaten me.
Yeah, he's Russo tries to be all threatening and intimidating, and Mike Tenay, and he puts his hand on his throat, and Mike Tenay just knocks his hand off his throat and is shut the fuck up, you stupid idiot.
Also, that was so real. Mike was don't fucking touch me.
Yeah, Mike Tenay is the biggest badass on these shows.
He's not scared.
So NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 58, Eric Watts comes to the ring.
Hell yeah.
Your favorite wrestler.
He's up there.
So he's talking about how he's going to lay down the authority and he's going to make a title match for tonight, but then Styles and Russo come out and it's we're going on vacation, buddy.
And they do.
AJ Styles' fashion choices here were even worse. He looked like a 21 Jump Street style person trying to infiltrate a college frat as a police officer.
Yeah.
He looked like a 25-year-old who keeps failing Sunday school.
Do 25-year-olds go to Sunday school?
But the point is he kept on failing, so he's just still there.
Do they hold people back at Sunday school?
You haven't learned God well enough, Liam. You have to stay in Sunday school.
I've only been to Sunday school twice.
Clearly, they didn't get you to stay there. You were I'll have to be years here.
They said you've completed Jesus.
Russo and Styles were trying to back away. I quite enjoyed Russo when he got in Eric Watts' face and was look at me when I'm talking to you. But as he said that, he stepped in behind Styles, which I thought was a nice little character touch.
He's good at that kind of Weasley shit.
Eric Watts replied, "You can take your little chicken." Stopped because he didn't want to curse. Looked at the crowd. The crowd chanted, "Shit!" And then Watts was "Thank you."
He's "Thank you, I couldn't say it." Chicken stuff.
So the crux of this segment is that Russo and Styles start to walk away, but then Watts goads AJ into accepting a world championship match against the returning Loki.
Yeah. Who we're not acknowledging the sex stuff with.
Not at all. Last we saw of Loki, Liam, he was a member of Vince Russo's Sports Entertainment Extreme, and now he is just a babyface.
Yep.
Sure.
And he cuts the same Loki warrior promo as he was doing when he first showed up.
Yeah, so he's just back to being OG babyface Loki. I am a warrior, man. I am going to fight you in my deep Loki voice.
It's pretty good.
Thank you. Main event of the show, AJ Styles against Loki in their final singles match in TNA.
Wow. It's fine.
I thought it was a very good world title match, but not great. I preferred the Raven match, and it's wild that AJ and Raven had a better match than AJ and Loki did.
You gave it the same rating.
I didn't. I was like 3.5, didn't I?
3.75.
Well, I'm wrong, aren't I? How dare you hold my ratings accountable?
Nice to be held accountable for your ratings, huh?
Monster. How dare you do this to me again? But yeah, I thought it was a very good match. I thought they worked well together. I quite enjoyed toward the end of the match when Loki got Russo on like the announce table and started beating the shit out of him. Mike Tenay was never so happy.
And he like pounced him too.
Yeah, Mike Tenay very much cheering on Loki's beating up a Russo. There was like an exchange of strikes that Styles did where he did like a bunch of punches, chops, and kicks that reminded me a lot of like a less polished version of the same thing he'd do in like 2013, 2014, where he'd do like the leg kick, the punch, the leg kick, and then like the spinning back fist.
Yeah, the slap, leg kick, back fist.
Yeah, which would be like a signature Styles exchange, but it felt like a much less polished, like desperate flurry here. But it did remind me of that thing. So he's like, oh, look at him.
Sorry, to clarify, slap, leg kick, back kick, and Zaguri. Because that's the finishes of that sequence.
So yeah, Russo interferes. AJ hits Loki with a baseball bat, retains the title. Very good match. I thought that, like, other than the D'Lo match, I liked both AJ title defenses this month. I thought he had a good match against Loki and a good match against Raven.
Problem with AJ is that you're always just going to have such high expectations for him, especially in these title matches, that maybe that's just unfair.
Yeah, and like, the problem is, again, it's not an AJ and Loki match. It's an AJ with Vince Russo and Loki match. And I think that's fine for the Raven stuff because they do incorporate the Gathering and the New Church stuff into like the overall match structure. So you're not really expecting them to go out there and have like a pure wrestling contest. But when it's AJ and Loki, you do want them to go out there and have a pure wrestling contest. It's AJ and Loki.
You want them to have a Ring of Honor main event.
So yeah, AJ beats Loki to retain. I find it interesting. They never wrestle in TNA again. And like they do have multiple times where they're on the same show again. It's not like they're never in the same company anymore, but they never go back to the AJ Loki singles well.
I guess by the time like Loki comes back and stuff, AJ's kind of moved on.
NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 59, August 20th. AJ and Russo are on vacation.
Yeah, it's a great segment.
So we cut to poolside at night where Vince Russo, for some reason, is sunbathing.
Because it's funny.
So AJ's talking about how he's on vacation. He's happy to be away from work for a while. Then he's like, look, I invented a new...
Dad, look at me. I'm going to do a cool flip.
It's like, I've invented a new flip. And Russo's like, you go do it, son. And AJ does like a little spiral tap looking thing into the pool. And Vince Russo's like, yeah, well done. Good job, son.
He did Naito's move.
Yeah, Naito was watching this in 2003. And he's like, oh, I'll start doing this in Japan.
Press. This is the dorky AJ that you expect, huh?
And that you would see more of in like the Christian Coalition era.
I was imagining like the angles with him and Karen Angle.
Because like AJ, anytime he tries to do like a serious promo, which he tried to do a little of it with the sit down interview with Mike Tenay, he's absolutely horrible. Like you cannot speak to how bad AJ Styles is as a promo these days. He's hideous. He's absolutely terrible. Gets lost in his words. Never says anything meaningful.
Gets frustrated.
He has no idea what he's doing on any promo. So when he's just doing the goofball stuff, he actually feels like he understands what his role is.
Yeah, very genuine.
Later in that show, there's a segment after a Jeff Jarrett and Eric Watts against Daniels and Legend match, which we'll talk about when we get to the Jarrett and Daniels stuff. But for the most of the show, you see in the crowd, Liam, there's two people wearing a Freddy and Jason costumes.
We got worked.
They're just hanging out in the crowd behind Mike Tenay and Don West. Just having a good time here in the asylum.
It was FMW's Freddy and Jason the Terrible.
As it turns out, Liam, Vince Russo and AJ Styles weren't on vacation.
What? But we saw them.
They were hiding all night in the asylum, dressed as Freddy and Jason.
I hope they were there the whole time.
Well, every time they cut to Mike Tenay and Don West on camera, they were there, so...
Yeah, but they could have just walked out every time, you know?
There is a note. The one in the Jason mask, who turned out to be Styles, was poking Tenay when he was announcing, just as a tease to try and take him out of his game, but Tenay just thought it was an annoying fan and he ignored it. Very few, if anyone, was let in that they were doing that gimmick, although it was known they would do the run-in after the match.
The rules.
Once again, working the boys.
Yeah, but like it's funny, so this one isn't like a big deal, so I don't mind that.
Just pestering Mike Tenay a little.
Yeah.
I don't get the reason they were disguised, but it's not like they were banned from the building.
No, because they were supposed to be on vacation. It was trying to be a surprise attack.
But they could have just run out and done a surprise attack.
Well, that's less impactful. This was a master plan, Garrett.
Their master plan to do something they could have done anyway without the disguise.
Hmm.
They thought this one through. But yeah, they lay a bunch of people out. We'll talk about that when we get to the Jarrett and Daniels stuff. And then last show of the month, there really is just the Jarrett and Raven match, which is really good. NWA-TNA baby number 57. This is the Jeff Jarrett and Christopher Daniels feud, which is this is one of the few things of the month I'll be like is kind of bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Jeff Jarrett feud in NWA-TNA. He runs out, he beats someone up, and then someone else runs out and beats him up, and then he gets taken away or like banned or something like that. It's every feud that he's ever had in this company.
So Daniels is doing a promo in the crowd, and poor Christopher Daniels died an absolute death in this promo.
I think it's because like hardly anyone could hear him.
And like the material is just horrible. For some reason, he's like the only dude fighting the sex battle anymore, where he's still like, traditional wrestling, it's horrible. We need metamorphosis. I'm going to say the word metamorphosis multiple times because it's the crux of my promo. Metamorphosis. And I'm still rebelling against traditional wrestling, and we need sports entertainment and metamorphosis. Did I say metamorphosis? It's just I can't imagine anybody on earth caring about this character.
Just have him be Fallen Angel, man.
He does at least try to pander to you and go full Brian Lawler.
Well, if he was knocking out fans, then yeah.
He did. A fan attacked him.
No, I mean legitimately.
Oh, you want him to shoot punch the fan?
Yes, of course.
So yeah, a fan threw a drink at him. Daniels fought him, but then Jarrett made the save for the fan.
To be fair, like it was a good beatdown on the fan.
Mm-hmm. It's just we've set the Brian Lawler standards of break their nose.
Yeah.
And if you don't reach the level of break their nose, it's not a good fan attack angle.
I mean, because at this point we've done so many, So you got to do it.
So NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 58 after the Dusty and AMW against Diamond, Swinger, and Gilberti match. Daniels attacks Dusty, Jarrett makes the save, Legend attacks Jarrett, Watts makes the save, and then Watts announces that he and Jarrett will face Legend and Daniels the following week.
Wow.
There's a lot of those like cascading series of run-ins. There's a lot of it in the Diamond and Swinger stuff. It's like, Diamond and Swinger would run in, AMW would run in, and then Daniels would run in, and then Dusty would run in, and then Gilberti would run in. It's like, okay.
Everything that you need.
So NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 59, we had a sit-down interview with Mike Tenay and Eric Watts, where Eric Watts tried to explain how he was made Director of Authority.
Ooh, yeah, exactly, right? So
he was telling us that there is the NWA, and there is TNA, thus NWA-TNA.
Yes, all right. Slow down a bit for me, please.
So TNA owns 51%, which implies NWA owns 49%.
Okay, sure.
So Eric Watts is the representative of the NWA.
Yeah.
And because TNA know promotion and the NWA know wrestling, that NWA are in charge of wrestling operations. Mm-hmm. So they placed Eric Watts in charge for reasons. Mm-hmm. But the reason that Don Callis is here is because the people at TNA want to push in on the wrestling side of things. They're getting like too big for their boots. So they want to make sure that the wrestling stuff is happening the way they want it to. So they have assigned Don Callis as executive consultant or whatever it is, management consultant.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Sure, why not?
I mean, listen, I like the idea that now the NWA is like, we have to step in. Everything else was fine, but now we have to step in.
There's also, he talks about how it's like, me and Jeff are pals now. He's gotten where he wanted to all along, Liam. He's teaming with Jeff Jarrett.
What a payoff, huh?
So then we get the tag match, which is Jarrett and Watts against Daniels and Legend. Surprisingly enjoyable, honestly.
Yeah, it's a fun little match.
The highlight of which is Eric Watts is facing the corner at one stage. And you're like, well, what in the world is Eric Watts about to do?
What in Watts' world?
So he does a springboard reverse drop kick, a springboard mule kick. And it's ridiculous, and I kind of love it.
And he doesn't, Vader it very much. He just kind of jumps and does it.
So yeah, because it is a little like the Vader bomb, except into a dropkick, but to the top rope, and also he just does, as you mentioned, he just kind of does it.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It's an absolutely wild move. This was also the match where it was like, we mentioned last week that Eric Watts would be a really good tag team wrestler, and I think this match was like the proof of concept.
This was the most of Eric Watts' chaotic energy influencing his actual in-ring work. For sure. I think you felt it in this.
I will say he abused his power because they did the hot tag, referee didn't see it, Watts returned to the corner. They did it again where referee didn't see it, but this time Watts, who is Director of Authority, he just moved referee Mike Posey out of the way and did his hot tag comeback. Flagrant abuse of power here from Eric Watts.
I mean, Eric Watts, man. Just Eric Watts.
So we had the post-match angle where the red shirts ran out, Jerry Lynn cut him off, Freddie and Jason emerged from the crowd to reveal themselves as Styles and Russo. They handcuffed Watts to the rail, and then they beat the hell out of Jeff Jarrett, and then they brought him to the hearse backstage, which was there for a D'Lo Brown and Sonny Siaki segment that we'll talk about in a second. There's a lot of like these stories intersect in different periods. It's very annoying to cover in a broad way, but nonetheless. But yeah, they abduct Jeff Jarrett so he couldn't appear in the gauntlet match later that night.
Like we said on the watch along, them playing his music was a good little touch though, because that is his spot.
He still had his spot in the match, and it set up the Raven one, where it's like it made sense that they then played Raven's music, but then Raven actually came out.
Yeah.
I did quite enjoy Mike Tenay shouting at the top of his lungs, "Jeff Jarrett's been abducted!"
Like, something, like, just a real thing that someone would say, you know?
Yeah, it's just, for some reason, it's the use of the word abducted, that he was abducted.
In a pro wrestling context as well.
So, NWA-TNA Baby number 60, Jeff Jarrett has returned to get revenge. He emerges from the hearse, which I believe he was in the hearse all week, I guess.
He's taking a nap.
He took all week to get out of the hearse, but once the hearse returns to the building, he attacks Sonny Siaki with a guitar, he attacks Disco with a guitar, he attacks a bunch of people with guitars.
We're firmly in, like, the guitar era now, after being so sparing with it up until now.
I think he hits Daniels with a guitar at one stage on this show as well, so it's like, yeah,
Yes.
there is multiple guitar shots on this show.
I'm guessing that was the point. It was meant to be like, he's got the guitar now, he's just swinging around like a maniac. But I kind of didn't notice it. I was just like, oh yeah, there it is.
So yeah, the post-match to Styles and Raven, AMW come out and they're like, we're not going to let this go down, but then it does go down.
One AMW.
Well, yes, Chris Harris. Chris Harris is like, this isn't going to go down like this. First we lost the tag titles and now Raven lost like this. It's not going to happen like this. But it does.
I like that they let Chris Harris cut this promo though, because it could have just easily been Jarrett.
So everyone runs out, everyone makes the save. So you have everyone out there where Eric Watts jumps on the microphone and he's like, next week it's going to be Jarrett, AMW, Raven, and D'Lo against Styles, Daniels, Shane Douglas, Diamond, and Swinger in Wednesday Bloody Wednesday, which is TNA's first War Games match.
Lethal Lockdown.
And in a very nice touch, the inventor of War Games, Dusty Rhodes, was out there, and he was the man who will keep the key for the Wednesday Bloody Wednesday match next week.
I like that he said it's like, sounds like a little War Games, and it's like, Dusty.
I did quite enjoy that they made sure you knew that it's War Games they're doing. It's like, just in case, we explained the rules so that you knew it's War Games, but we're also going to say the words War Games multiple times so that you know it's War Games.
Gotta get a little blood and guts.
I will say, I thought they built this match quite nicely. We talked about like the fact that the intersecting stories was a little annoying to cover from a broad topics perspective, but the way they intersected these stories makes sense that they're going to bring them all together into this War Games match.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of wrapping it all together.
So we will talk about that in the September episode, because the first show of the month is the Super X Cup and the Wednesday Bloody Wednesday War Games match.